Hi everyone, my name is Kirgan, and today I will be telling you the story of Guaman Poma de Ayala and his work. Now, before I start, I just wanted to introduce myself. So I'm a fourth year honors BA student in history and an advanced minor in FLS. And a lot of the classes that I do are post-colonial and European history. So I am feeling a little bit out of my element in this class. However, I did a lot of research for this project and a lot of readings, and I actually think it's quite interesting. So at the end, I hope that you have learned just as much as I did. Today, as I said, I will be talking about Felipe Guaman Poma de Ayala, with a focus on his work rather than his biography. Guaman Poma de Ayala was born in and around 1534, although his exact date of birth is uncertain to many historians. He was a purebred Andean Aboriginal from the Huamanga and Arequipa regions. As we learned in two of our most recent readings, he was well enriched in both his native language and Spanish, so when he left his home regions, he became a Spanish and native interpreter for the colonials. You may be wondering why this man is important to history. Well, it's very easy to answer this. He was able to spend a large portion of his life creating a manuscript that helped historians understand the past and the present day. The work I want to further examine with all of you is the first New Chronicles and Good Government. It is an 1100 plus page book manuscript that has over 400 illustrations and prologues that detail the life of the people in Peru from the day it started to 1615 when the manuscript was finished and everything in between. Now, you may be wondering how I got my hands on this 400-year-old book. And I didn't. I used the abridged version by David Fry, and as well as the Danish Royal Library website, along with Google Translate, to actually understand the manuscript. And the document itself has primary sources called quipu, and these are knotted strings that detail stories that were told and experienced by the Incas. Now, this type of source in amazing artwork was not actually ever passed down within generations, so it's actually quite hard for historians to understand the history of it. So these quipu documents, or artworks I guess you could call them, account for life in the Inca Empire, and they give statistical and narrative information. Now I want to tell you the story within the book. The story within the manuscript is very long, again, because it has anything told in Peru until 1615. The first part of the manuscript are letters to the Spanish king Felipe III, to the Pope, and to the readers. These letters explain that Guama was looking for a blessing from the king, as well as for reasons as to why this manuscript is important. The book itself was originally produced to show and expose the issues towards the Inca people by the Spaniards to the king. He'd hoped that the king would appoint an Andean to the administration to provide better treatment to them. The manuscript has a very large biblical reference throughout it, and he constantly has prologues which are written to the Catholic readers, and I assume that this is because he converted to Catholicism after he left his home region. 477 of these pages report and illustrate just colonials and their events, while 214 refer to the Incas. Within these pages, each chapter starts with a drawing of the war scene, of rituals, Inca power, and just anything like that. 119 refer to agriculture, and only 10 pages or drawings refer to colonials and the Incas together. Now I'm just going to show you a beautiful drawing. So here's one example. And here's another one. So this one I actually thought was really interesting. It is in chapter 6, and it's the last page. So it says, "There you will leave the ideality and take what is of God, and that was from you. You were great saints of the world. From now on, I serve God and the Virgin Mary and her saints." So I decided to take this part of the story and relate it to what we're doing in class. So for me, this is a representation of acculturation, because it's taking the culture of Guaman Poma de Ayala, and it is him adapting to this new culture, so Catholicism. Just gonna go back. So this page was actually lost. The manuscript was lost. So after he finished it, he sent it off to the King of Spain, but it never actually arrived. And this is a major part of understanding why the manuscript is so important to Latin American history, because it gives a representation of what was happening in the colonial times as well as in the Inca times. It also shows the iconography continuity of motives and expands our knowledge on the time and the events that were taking place. It helps us better understand the cultural logics, complexity of what was happening. It makes us think of the society and events in the eyes of the beholder. So, finally, I'm going to tell you why this is important to the present as well as to the module. So, as I said before, this was lost. So, I think it's important to understand this manuscript and why it's important, because without it, we wouldn't actually be able to know what had happened and the stories told by the Incas. We would have only had what the colonials told us. Now, how does it help us understand the module? So, as I said before, I think it's really important to think about acculturation, but we can also refer this to De la Vega and his idea compared to Poma de Ayala's idea of acculturation. So, Garcilaso saw the history of Peru in a euphoric way. He describes the event of the Incas and the colonials as harmony, and he had a vision that was very much different to Poma's. Poma had this vision of disjunction, and he saw that there was no connection between the two, and this can be seen within the lack of representation of the Incas and of the colonials together in the manuscript. For me, this is a prime example of acculturation, because I've found that for De la Vega, acculturation worked in a way that the Spanish culture was there and they were going to work alongside and with the Spanish. But for Poma de Ayala, he didn't think of this. He saw the issues that were happening within the Inca Empire, as well as issues that were happening with the Incas, and he couldn't see how the acculturation of not fully losing your culture and how it worked with the Spanish. As well, we can use De la Vega's works and ideas of acculturation to further expand this point. And De la Vega had the idea of unity, whereas Poma de Ayala did not. Anyways, thank you, and yeah. So before I finish, I just wanted to end this presentation by saying a little piece about how I reflect on this subject. So as I joined this class pretty late into the semester, I kind of just picked because it was the last ones available. But I actually think it's a very interesting topic, and a lot of the times as historians, we are forced to use primary sources, and I feel like I've never actually encountered anything like this before. I think that it's amazing that we can read the history from almost 400 years ago that has evidence that is so well preserved, such as the Quipu text, to account for the stories that we've learned. I also think it's important because, we rarely see this, and it gives a lengthy detail of the stories that we wouldn't have been able to know without this manuscript. I also think it's important to note that it's bringing the past to the present. I know I've said that a lot, but I truly do think that. So I hope you all enjoyed my presentation, and I hope you have a good day.